if I told you that one of the greatest cultural erasures in Indian history happened in just a few decades? That an entire region, once deeply rooted in its indigenous and Hindu traditions, was systematically converted, not by choice, but by force, manipulation, and foreign money? This is the untold story of how powerful Western forces tried to Christianize India, starting with the Northeast. The mid-19th century saw a flood of missionaries entering India, many under the guise of civilizing the native population. The British colonial government, along with powerful Christian organizations in the West, saw India as a fertile ground for religious expansion. The Northeast, being isolated and home to diverse tribal communities, became a primary target for conversion. Missionary societies such as the Arthington Aborigines Mission, the American Baptist Mission, and the Welsh Presbyterian Mission were among the most aggressive. Their goal was not just to spread Christianity, but to systematically replace the traditional beliefs of the indigenous people with Christian doctrine. These groups believed that by converting the tribals and Hindus of Northeast India, they could establish a Christian stronghold that would eventually influence the entire nation. Nathan Brown and Miles Bronson, American Baptist missionaries who initiated large-scale conversions in Assam, using schools and economic aid to influence the local population. Arthington Aborigines Mission, a radical British-funded mission that targeted remote tribes, offering food and financial help in exchange for Christian baptism. Welsh Presbyterian Mission, a key force in Mizoram and Meghalaya, replacing native traditions with strict Christian teachings. William Pettigrew, Manipur's first missionary, who openly called for the elimination of indigenous faiths. John Williams and English Baptists, pioneers in Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh, where they systematically dismantled existing tribal traditions through coercion and material incentives. The conversions were not voluntary. They were orchestrated through manipulation, exploiting the dire economic conditions of many tribal communities. Missionaries strategically set up schools, hospitals, and food distribution centers in areas where people were struggling to survive. These services were not offered freely. They came with an unspoken condition: conversion to Christianity. Many impoverished families were faced with a cruel choice: remain loyal to their faith and suffer from hunger and lack of education, or accept Christianity and receive food, medical treatment, and access to English language schools. Over time, entire villages converted, not because of spiritual enlightenment, but because Christianity became the only pathway to a better life under colonial rule. Mission schools. These schools portrayed indigenous beliefs as outdated and superstitious, while teaching that Christianity was the only path to progress and salvation. Food and medicine. People in need were provided food and medical aid only if they agreed to convert, effectively forcing conversions under the guise of charity. Demonizing native faiths. Hinduism, animism, and local traditions were labeled as satanic or backward to convince the people to abandon them. Breaking families. Those who converted were encouraged to sever ties with their non-Christian relatives, creating deep divides within communities. From the late 1800s to early 1900s, the entire landscape of the Northeast changed. In just a few decades, mass conversions took place, radically altering the cultural and religious fabric of the region. In places like Nagaland, Mizoram, and Meghalaya, the shift was so rapid that within a generation, Christianity had become the dominant faith. The missionaries focused on young children, ensuring that once they were educated in Christian schools, they would grow up rejecting their ancestral traditions. Through this approach, they not only converted individuals, but entire future generations. In Nagaland, less than 1% of the population was Christian in 1880. By 1960, it was 80%. The American Baptist Missionary Society spent millions to target Assamese Hindus and tribals. In Mizoram, the Welsh Presbyterian Mission converted over 90% of the population. The British classified the region as backward to justify missionary intervention. The funding behind these conversion efforts was not random. It came from powerful Western churches and business tycoons who had a long-term vision of creating a Christian stronghold in India. These organizations funneled millions into missionary projects, ensuring that the movement would not lose momentum. Reports show that the Rockefeller Foundation, London Missionary Society, and American Baptist Foreign Mission Board provided massive financial support to missionary activities in India. With such backing, the goal was clear: weaken native spiritual traditions and establish Christian dominance in key regions. London Missionary Society, funded by British aristocrats, American Baptist Foreign Mission Board, poured money into Assam and Nagaland. Welsh Calvinist Methodist Mission targeted Mizoram and Meghalaya. Rockefeller and other American millionaires. Donations for India's Christian future. The forced conversions of Northeast India changed not just the religion, but the entire identity of the region. Traditions that had survived for centuries were erased in just a few decades. But the story doesn't end there. Today, Christianity dominates the Northeast, yet the wounds of forced conversions remain. Generations have grown up disconnected from their original faiths, unaware of the rich spiritual heritage that was systematically erased. Families were torn apart, entire cultures were rewritten, and an entire region was transformed into something unrecognizable from its past. The question remains, was this truly an act of faith, or was it a calculated effort to weaken India's cultural roots? Who really benefited from these conversions? Was it the native people, or was it the colonial rulers and their missionary partners who sought control over both faith and politics? Today, the Northeast stands as a testament to how foreign intervention can alter a nation's spiritual landscape. But as awareness grows, so does the call to reclaim the lost heritage. The resurgence of native traditions, the rediscovery of forgotten customs, and the resistance against cultural erasure are signs that history is being re-examined. Will history repeat itself, or will India learn from its past? That decision lies in the hands of those willing to question, to uncover the truth, and to ensure that history is never forgotten.